Friday edition, Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All studio downtown Milwaukee. Joshy DiMaggio is here. Hunter Vaughn is back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Want to get to a lot of Packers notes as coaches are interviewing places, and Brian Gutekunst meeting with the media yesterday for his final press conference of the 2024 season. So want to get to all that. But would be remiss if I didn't start today with of course, the news yesterday. Bob Uecker, the absolute Wisconsin legend that is Bob Uecker, passes away at the age of 90 yesterday. And, you know, I said this yesterday, but it is hard to articulate what he means to this state and this city, because he's all we know, right? Like, I'm 26, so obviously he's all I know, but he's all my parents know. He's all most people's parents know, right? He's been the voice of the Brewers forever. And he's the soundtrack of the summer. He's the soundtrack of our state, right? Like Bob Uecker is one of the most beloved figures in the history of this state. So it's a big loss, but obviously he lived an incredible life that went from, baseball to wrestling to late night to television. I mean, the guy was everywhere, to movies. An incredible life for Bob Uecker. And it was really neat. I went over to AmFam Field yesterday as, people were starting to create what turned into just this huge memorial at the foot of a statue outside of AmFam Field. So if you're watching on the video side, you can see what it turned into last night. When I was there was 2 Miller Lights and like 3 flowers or 3 bouquets of flowers at that time. And it just, evolved and turned into this huge celebration of Bob Uecker last night. Speaking with our teammate Tony Cartagena, who's hosted the show before, he was out there late last night around 9 p.m. and he said there was just people everywhere drinking Miller Lights, just crowded outside the Bob Uecker statue. Which when you have a death that hits so many people this hard, it feels like all of us lost a friend, because it's somebody you spent so much time listening to over, for many of us, the entirety of our lives. So it's hard, it's immeasurable, right? It's impossible to measure how much of an impact Bob Uecker had on this state and this city. And Hunter, I know you're a huge Brewers fan. It sucks, but it's a day we all knew was eventually coming. And obviously he was fighting battles that none of us knew about until yesterday, which included cancer. And he's just the ultimate celebrity, the ultimate superstar, and he will obviously be dearly missed by all Brewers fans and Wisconsin sports fans.
Yeah, and like this, honestly, it hit me harder than I expected to yesterday.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm with you.
Because like for me, it was, there's obviously listening to all of the games, but like I told this story to Corey and Wally on the Damn Sports Show yesterday, but I used to go with my mom over to my grandma's, and we would have the Brewer game on TV, but we were listening to Bob, and I was just spending that time with her. And then as I started to kind of want to get into sports broadcasting, a mentor of mine and my uncle, he would send me old broadcasters he listened to. So like Chick Hearn, who was the Lakers guy in the 80s. And, he would send me old Howard Cosell stuff. But then he sent me Bob Uecker, and he sent me the game that Robin Yount hit his 3,000th hit. And just the way that Bob as a broadcaster worked. So it's like, for me, it was so much of these memories of growing up and being around baseball, but then shaping partially of my career goals and how much like Bob Uecker was unintentionally kind of woven into who I am today. So like it hit me pretty hard, and like last night I got home and was like telling my wife about it, and she was like, I didn't expect you to like be this broken up about it. And it just like it hit me so hard that like I knew it was gonna come, but you just didn't expect it like this and this suddenly. So it was tough, but I was so happy got to hear him. And even for when I was an intern, the 45 seconds of walking towards the clubhouse with him once. Never talked to him because I was terrified to, but just being in his presence, he was that type of guy where it was just such a cool thing, and was so lucky that he was here in Wisconsin and spent all of his time here.
Immeasurable. That is the word, but obviously just an absolute freaking legend. Mr. Baseball for a reason. Bob Uecker dead at 90, and obviously an amazing Wisconsin guy. So yesterday I was just going through old stuff, right? Like listening to that 60 Minutes feature they had on him last year. And just to hear the humor and playing stuff from Major League. And I don't know. Like, it's somebody that has been a part of our lives the entirety of our lives. So really, really sad news, but obviously an amazing life lived for the great Bob Uecker. All right, let's get into some Packers talk as Brian Gutekunst met with the media yesterday for the final time of the 2024 season. There's a couple things I want to get into from Goody. Leonardo on the ESPN Madison YouTube chat says, Big Al, good stuff last night with Wildy. Big Al, interested. Joshy, am I a Big Al? Is that a good nickname for me?
I think it's funnier if you would be like actually tiny.
Yeah.
Those nicknames always make me giggle. But you're too tall. You're scrawny, bit wiry. It doesn't really. It doesn't.
Bit wiry. It sounded like a compliment, actually.
Huh?
Bit wiry. That sounded like a compliment. You were making me sound athletic.
No.
When has anyone ever said wiry as a compliment?
Oh, wide receivers, man. Wiry wide receivers.
No, that usually means they're like
too rail thin.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So Big Al, not my nickname. Well, my girlfriend's name is Allison. And she's 5'1". So people call her Big Al.
Yeah, that makes me laugh.
When I saw this comment, I thought of my girlfriend, not me. But anyway, appreciate that. Weekly Wildy, if you're listening on the podcast feed, you can find it in the Mr. Relevant podcast feed or find it on YouTube at ESPN Milwaukee. Really good chat about all things Goody and pretty much everything entering the offseason with Wildy. We've now done, 21 episodes of that every Thursday since the Packers season began. And we're going to go through the Super Bowl at the very least, and maybe even through the draft, because this is such a big offseason for Goody. We talked about it quite a bit on Wednesday. I view this as Brian Gutekunst's biggest offseason yet as the general manager of the Packers. Now, and me and Wildy talked quite a bit about this in Weekly Wildy, but Brian Gutekunst does not believe in the concept of championship windows, right, of windows. Which I do, obviously, right? Like the Carolina Panthers championship window is not open, right? For the Packers, it is. And it especially is open next year, right? It prematurely opened last year. This year felt like the first year where, okay, yeah, maybe they could get there. Now, some of the things we saw this year, right? Losing twice to the Eagles, Lions, and Vikings kind of proved they weren't quite there, but they were still a good football team. They still won 11 games in the regular season. This offseason is the biggest of Brian Gutekunst's career because now you know what your shortcomings are. You have to take this thing to the next level, whether that be at wide receiver or many of the positions on defense. For Matt LaFleur, it's looking like he probably will have to fill some coaching holes. Hopefully not defensive coordinator, as Jeff Hafley interviews with the Jets, but looking like Derek Ainsley, who the defensive passing game coordinator, former defensive coordinator of the Chargers. Seems like he could get a defensive coordinator job, interviewing with Atlanta last night. So there are certainly going to be some holes to fill for Matt LaFleur. But for Brian Gutekunst, it's about taking this roster from where it is now, which is young and fast and pretty good, to probably still young relatively and continuing to get faster and better, right? You take it from good to great. So this is a very big offseason for Matt LaFleur. A couple of cuts I want to hear from Goody. Let's start with the wide receiver question, which is about essentially these wide receivers didn't take the step you expected them to, right? Jaden Reed had some games. Christian Watson had some games, but nobody really developed into that true security blanket, if you will, for Jordan Love. And Goody was asked about this and the idea of wide receiver one. I think it's interesting from him. Let's take a listen to the Packers general manager yesterday.
The other top quarterbacks in this conference, they all seem to have that receiver that they can go to when they're matchup at any point consistently. Do you need to get that guy for Jordan to be able to get to that point?
Yeah, I think we have some of those guys, and I think we don't have just one, but I think historically, if you look at a lot of the team, very rarely do teams that have one receiver that's super heavy with targets. That doesn't usually play out well for playoffs and success there. I think we're certainly looking for these guys that we have currently to take a step into that role where they are more consistent on the down basis. Certainly, if there's somebody outside of our building right now, whether it's the draft, free agency, that makes some sense for us, we'll certainly look to do that. But we're also looking for these guys to continue to grow and hopefully grow into that space.
So something you have to keep in mind with Goody is you got to take everything he says at this particular press conference, the end of season presser, with a grain of salt, because it is only a few days removed from the season ending in the postseason. So Goody still has a ton of things to evaluate and look into, but you hear him say there, if there's somebody on the outside, whether that be free agency or the draft, we'll look into it, which he will, right? That's just doing his due diligence. But let's remember last year at this very same press conference, he said he wants Aaron Jones back. Ultimately, he found out new information. I'm not calling him a liar by any means. It's just he found out new information. He found that Josh Jacobs was a realistic possibility, and it made more sense to make this football team better. It just did, right? It's something we've talked plenty about. Josh Jacobs is a workhorse back who still has a couple years left in his prime. Aaron Jones probably on the backside of his prime, despite being a very good running back. So there could certainly be a case where the Packers go out and find a receiver in free agency or the draft. It just likely won't be in the first round. That's a position in particular that I think Packers fans went into the season, this includes me, went into the season thinking maybe their depth would actually be a superpower of sorts, where any guy can go off on any given Sunday. But clearly that just wasn't the case. I feel like the Packers now, maybe not desperately, but really do need a top dog in that room. And the veteran presence certainly wouldn't hurt either, right? But this group is too inconsistent, was too inconsistent in 2024 for them not to at least take a swing of some sort. I don't think it's going to be a T. Higgins level swing, but it certainly could be. I'm not ruling it out, right? Never say never on that front, but could it be like a number 2 receiver? Because let's remember, and I'm not saying this is the game plan, but let's remember, Allen Lazard was technically a number 1 receiver one year. He was. I mean, he was consistent enough and had the production of a top receiver. Maybe not a CeeDee Lamb, type Justin Jefferson type year by any means, but he had a really solid year, and he was, by default, the number 1 receiver for the Packers. So they need somebody that is just an extra level of consistency. And I'd be curious to see what that move will look like. I don't think it's Keenan Allen. It's probably not Devontae Adams. I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't know who it is. You know, we went through, if you missed Wednesday's show, we went through a list of receivers. There's not a ton of sexy options on the market, right? Tyreek Hill ain't happening. But I'd be curious to see how Goody addresses this, because that, to me, sounded like he probably, at the very least, will look into it and draft a receiver in the middle round. And at most, he takes a big swing in free agency at that position. So I'd be curious. PT Sports Frisco chimes in, ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube. Our 2 MVPs this year were free agents, Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. Now we have more cap space. Let Jacobs recruit Max Crosby through a trade and replace the deep threat that is Watson with Cheetah. I just don't think Tyreek Hill's happening. Packers do not bring in problematic players, and Tyreek Hill, as good as he is a problematic player. They just won't allow that in the locker room. The Max Crosby one's interesting, man. I don't think it happens, but it's pretty clear to me that Max Crosby wants out of Las Vegas, and the Packers could use a stud edge rusher. Right, Rashawn Gary hasn't been that stud. I just don't see Max Crosby happening. Joshy, I'm sure you've put on the tinfoil hat and looked into it a little bit. Is Max Crosby actually viable? Is that something the Packers could take a swing on this offseason?
They could, in terms of it would financially fit, and they could make it work with the amount of money they have left. Brian Gutekunst spent time talking about, I don't know if we've ever traded a first-round pick around here, so any dreams of that happening, right. But he carries a big total. Obviously, there's a lot to be done there still with his contract, so I don't know what he ends up going for, because every time I feel like somebody's going to go for a ton of picks, they don't. And every time you don't think someone's that valuable, next thing you know, they're a second-round pick, and you're kind of confused by it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Max Crosby is like one of the premier players in all of the NFL.
Yep.
So it will cost a lot. Could you sweeten the deal with some of the players that maybe you have on your roster and send one over there? Perhaps. Maybe that works.
Yeah.
But anytime it comes to basically anything, first and second round, I pretty much dismiss as an option. Goody and the Packers love their draft picks. Probably too much.
Probably.
They probably overvalue them, and they're probably one of the few teams remaining that treat them as much gold as they do. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Goody's done things that I never would have expected him to do before. So I can't rule it out, but the way he sounded almost dismissive at the idea.
Yeah, I did hear that one as well. And, it's just how he operates, right? But I think something you just said there is really important, which is Goody's done things I haven't expected before. Josh Jacobs is one of those. Absolutely one of those, right? He falls into that category. So I do anticipate at some point this offseason when free agency gets going in about 2 months, I think it's March 15th is the date still, or whatever that Tuesday is, that you can legally sign players. I would expect some sort of swing. And I have recently developed in the last 48 hours a crush on a particular free agent who I will get to in a bit. But do want to do some cleanup on the offseason. So, Joshy, as you know, Brian Gutekunst, big fan of the show. Excuse me, Matt LaFleur, big fan of the show.
Yeah.
Well, they both are. But Matt LaFleur specifically, a big fan of the show. And a big fan of yours. Did you know that?
Wow, had no idea.
Well, he listened to you. As defensive line coach Jason Rebrovich has been fired. Rob Domofsky reporting that last night. Packers officially announcing that within the last half an hour. You said it, man. This defensive line was not good enough. You couldn't get anything going when rushing for.
I feel like I'm the only one on ESPN Wisconsin who even mentioned Jason Rebrovich's name, maybe aside from Wilde at points throughout the season. But yeah, they replaced their previous defensive line coach who it felt like hadn't developed anyone ever. And then they brought in Jason Rebrovich, and things got worse.
Yeah.
I think the name that they're interested in, the Jets D-line coach, is interesting. Mm-hmm. I do think Matt LaFleur has to obviously find somebody that can get the best out of those guys up front because, frankly, you're stuck with many of them for the next however many amount of years. Like Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary are kind of the two albatrosses right there, and you absolutely need more from them. You can add and supplement. Lucas Van Ness, did I send you guys the stat where basically in true pass rush sets he won 0 times?
Yeah, you sent me that.
He won 0 pass rushes, which is unfathomable. I mean, I think you could win one by accident.
It's similar to the Eric Stokes stat.
Yes.
Where he has never broken up a pass or hasn't since like his second year.
Right. And that's so fundamentally, like, people make mistakes and then you win because they made a mistake.
Well, remember Rashawn Gary's first 2 sacks of the season, right? He just went untouched.
Right, you trip over your own foot.
Right.
You like there's options there to win. And he failed to do it. And that, to me, is coaching. Because, like, Lucas Van Ness is simply way too big and strong to never beat the person in front of him a single time.
He is biologically a huge human being. And incredibly athletic.
Yes.
Like, it is sad that was a stat. I did see that. That was mind-boggling.
It's just, I think this is 2 parts for Matt LaFleur. He needs to start thinking about life without Jeff Hafley. Can we hire within and not have to try and change things and find something brand new?
Yep.
And he needs that defensive line and the edge to, frankly, just be better.
To just be better. And maybe they make a move. I would guess the first-round pick is going to be, and look, you can never predict with Goody. That man is unpredictable in the first round. Sometimes.
I could say with relative certainty, it's going to be D-line
or O-line
or corner.
What about O-line?
I think they feel better than we expect, and I think Josh Myers has a better chance of returning.
Okay, so there was one thing I didn't ask Wilde about yesterday. It's like, what percentage would you put Josh Myers being back at? Now, I will say this little insider information. I've mentioned this on the program before. Josh Myers has been long time dating a Green Bay resident, somebody I went to middle school with. So I don't know if that plays a role at all for him, A.J. Dillon style, wanting to make a home in Green Bay.
The thing is, I don't think Josh Myers is going to attract a ton of attention. You will have to pay him.
I mean, he's a starting center. I mean, he'll get attention.
Yeah, he's starting center, and when he's at his best, he's a mid-level guy.
Yeah, like probably what, number 15 in the league at best?
If you want to stress continuity and kind of building something and having a veteran but not going out and having to pay top dollar, like, it makes sense in that sense to bring him back. And, like, those guys were together for most of the year, and they were the second best offensive line in all of the NFL. So I would understand not wanting to change that up, even as much as at times he is the only center I've ever seen get beat like him, though. When he does lose, he loses instantly and in the worst way you've ever seen. But for the most part, you don't hear much about Josh Myers anymore, which is a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, it was rough there for a little bit with Myers. What was that, 2 years ago? It was just all-time bad.
Yes.
And then when Love took over, there was some really bad miscommunication early on in that season, that first season.
I know people hate to do the guy that got drafted after, but Creed Humphrey being the one everybody wanted and talked about for so long, going the pick after, is tough.
There's a few of those out there, man.
Yeah, like the
I
pick
mean,
after is same position. A guy everyone was like, this guy's unbelievable. He should probably be getting drafted higher. And the Packers go Josh Myers out of OSU.
It could be worse. They could be the Raiders and draft the wrong Byron Young. Have you seen that? That people figured that one out?
I haven't. I don't know what you're talking about.
The Rams have their edge rusher, Byron Young, who's had 7.5 sacks, really good edge rusher. There was also a player of the same name, same spelling from Alabama, who's an interior defensive lineman. The Raiders submitted their pick for Byron Young. They took the player from Alabama. 7 picks later, the Rams take their Byron Young, and people think that the Raiders screwed up and picked the wrong one.
That would be very Raiders.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also wanted to clean up from the draft. As far as I can tell, the Packers have not, other than 2 times, really ever traded to move up in the first round. There was the 2001 draft when they traded Matt Hasselbeck to Seattle. And then 98, I didn't even see what pick it was. They sent their first rounder to Miami and a second rounder for Miami's first. So I would assume that one was a move up in the draft situation as well. Other than that, that's not something the Packers do. So I don't think they're going to be moving that first round pick unless it's to move down.
And even within that, those are all trade related, draft related trades. They're not doing the giving up future assets for players thing, really, as far as I can remember as Packers.
So 98, they jumped up to pick number 19, and Miami jumped back to pick 29. Joshy, the 1998 NFL draft, this was before I was born, right before I was born. 1998 NFL draft. I would have gotten this right. Defensive end, North Carolina. Who was it?
Defensive end, North Carolina.
Yep. Not Julius Peppers. Obviously.
98.
He was a Packer for a long time.
It's not Aaron Campman. No way.
No, too early for Aaron Campman. He's an Iowa.
Is it a guy who's actually a defensive end but played defensive tackle, like a name? I don't know it.
He's a defensive end. It was Vonnie Holiday.
Okay.
I was going to guess that. Had a Vonnie Holiday jersey.
I've always thought of him more as like an interior guy.
He was with the Packers for 5 years and then obviously played in the league until 2012.
Chiefs, right?
He was with the Chiefs 03-04, then was in Miami from 05 to 08, played 09 in Denver, was with Washington 2010, and then finished his career in Arizona 2011 and 2012. Wow. I didn't realize Vonnie Holiday was in the league for 14 years.
Numbers.
15 years. That's a hell of a career for Vonnie Holiday. Good for him. I didn't realize that. Hey, something I was randomly thinking real quick, and we'll get back to business.
Here we go.
Yeah, this is a fun one. So earlier you mentioned Max Crosby, one of the premier players in the NFL. And my mind, for whatever reason, went to, how the NFL Network puts on that top 100 players every year, voted on by the players? If you were given a ballot today, Joshy, let's just run through it. I want to hear what your ballot would be. So who would you put number one best player in the NFL?
My list is going to be Patrick Mahomes until I can't no longer put him there.
Okay, who'd be number two?
Probably Lamar or Josh Allen.
Okay, so that'd be 2 and 3, whichever
Yeah.
order. Number 4, do you get away from quarterback then?
Probably. I probably look at Myles Garrett.
Okay, what about Saquon?
He's up. He's top 10 for me for sure.
Okay. Jamar Chase probably up there?
Yes.
Given the year he had?
Also, his name slipped in my mind. The cornerback from Denver.
Oh,
Patrick
Surtain.
Surtain.
Patrick Surtain.
There you go. Yeah, that's a name that I put up there.
Yep.
I'm looking at guys here who are offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, guys who are in that MVP conversation.
Sure. I'm curious when this list comes out. I think that comes out in the summer. How far or how many Packers make the top 100? X would be the highest rated, probably, or Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jordan Love makes it after this year.
No, I don't think
And
he
if
does.
he does, he's probably 80s, 90s, right? He's probably really
it's
low.
probably down there.
Does anybody else make it?
I mean, Zach Tom and Elton Jenkins have a good case for it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of offensive linemen make that. Like they do, but not a lot of them do.
And it's hard to. People don't pay much attention, even football players, to that.
They have to be like Zach Martin, Trent Williams level good, where it's like they're an all-time
I would imagine,
great.
We can disagree with it, but I think Rashawn Gary has a chance at it.
You're right. He's making the Pro Bowl.
I wouldn't be surprised if Edgerrin Cooper sneaks in.
Ooh. Now, that's an interesting thought. I would guess probably not.
I mean, he won Defensive Player of the Week multiple times and Defensive Player of the Month. He has the advantage of he made big plays when the Packers were on national TV multiple times. He was a difference maker when it mattered the most in the season for them.
Do you know who the number one player of the top 100 players of 2024 was? It is a name I have brought up as potentially coming to the Packers today. Actually, not potentially coming to the Packers. I shut it down.
Devontae Adams?
Tyreek Hill was the number one player in the league last year.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big year.
Lamar was 2, Christian McCaffrey, Patrick Mahomes, Myles Garrett.
I do remember that.
Yeah, interesting. Did any Packers make the list last year? Jordan Love was 34, and Rashawn Gary was 50.
Yeah.
The only 2 Packers to make the list last year. Okay, super interesting. I always think that's interesting because it's all by the players. Right, so it's whose respect do you have, rather than Pro Bowl voting or polling the media. It's very player centric, and I always find that series very interesting.
I always leave feeling that I don't know how much these guys are watching other players. A lot of times when you end up seeing the rankings, because there are always big glaring omissions or people way too low. And it's that guy's, I think that's just a name and popular. They engage in the name and popularity much like the Pro Bowl does. Because they also get their friends in, they get their teammates in. Right. It's as unscientific as any other sort of ranking.
Yeah, it is. I mean, vote for your guys, right? So if I was filling out this ballot, Joshy, you'd be first. Hunter would be second.
I feel disrespected.
Jesse Nelson would be off the list.
How far down is young intern Will?
He's probably
part-timer Will.
Well, I'd like to call him Steve from Blue's Clues today, given the shirt he's wearing. But it's a good look for him regardless. Intern, I like how former intern and part-time Will, sometimes you'll just stroll in mid-episode, and then he looks at me like I need to put him on the air, so I'm going to. Will, you think you own the joint now, or what's going on here now that you've got a job?
I came down here to eat lunch and listen to you talk. I didn't look at you like I wanted to be on the air.
Just get a front row seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Live studio audience. What's for lunch?
I ordered some quesadillas.
All right.
I'm a Mr. Irrelevant enjoyer. I just wanted to get the live show while I enjoy my lunch. I was in a meeting.
Will, your nose is a little
I couldn't
brown.
Be here for the start.
Yeah, your nose is a little brown, Hunter just said.
What does that mean?
Brown nosing? You're kissing my ass is what he's saying.
I was not doing that.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Will.
Not cool, Hunter.
Thanks, Will. All right, I want to get to this, and I'm curious what Joshy thinks. So, obviously, I've been looking into free agents. I've been looking into what the Packers could potentially do this offseason. And I've developed a little bit of a free agency crush, which is not, draft crush is very normal. And by the way, I'm such a genius at draft crushes. Every draft crush I have who doesn't get drafted by the Packers develops into a superstar. Now, in 2020, my draft crush was Jordan Love, so this one's going to work out in my favor. But 2 years ago, I had a particular cornerback that I wanted the Packers to draft so damn bad, and they didn't. They drafted Lucas Van Ness. He was available at the 13th pick, and he has developed into an All-Pro already in 2 years. Christian Gonzalez of the New England Patriots, the former corner out of Oregon. I loved that guy. And I'm so pissed. Think about how much better of a situation the Packers would be in had they drafted Christian Gonzalez rather than Lucas Van Ness, who didn't win a freaking, what was it? He didn't win a single
pass rush.
Wow.
No pass rush wins.
Imagine. Cut Jair, you have your number one corner. It'd be a totally different scenario. Oh, my God. They'd still be playing. They would have won last week. I don't know about that.
The offense was the problem.
Yeah, correct. The defense was actually great last week. But anyway, speaking of corner, I have developed a free agency crush. Now, this is a guy who's been a little well-traveled, and he's 28. So I don't know if he fits the Goody criteria, but he's a good corner.
Is he a former Viking?
He is not a former Viking. He is a former 49er. He's a former Seahawk. And will be a former Jet. Be DJ Reed. I like him, man. I mean, he's gonna get some looks in this open market because he had a good couple of years in New York. But he's a guy where I think the Packers should go take a swing and go after him. He's one of the better corners, if not the best corner in this free agent class. I just think he's 28, so like he's certainly trending towards the back end of his prime. But you could be a good corner into your 30s in the NFL. And that is a position that I think the Packers just desperately need to address. And I don't think you can do it in the draft. Because, look, corner is a very tough position to translate from college to the NFL. Like, even if you take a first-round pick on a corner, it's very rare they become a superstar in year one. Right? Year 2, 3, 4, definitely. So I just think you need somebody, even if this is a 2-year, 3-year deal with DJ Reed, you need somebody who can come in and be that true number one corner. And even if you draft one, right? He's a veteran now, help these guys develop. DJ Reed, now formerly of the New York Jets, is my free agent crush.
Over at Acme Packing Co., no free ads, but our friend of show, Justice Mosqueda, who's been on this program.
Friend of show when I'm not here, yes.
He has both Asante Samuel Jr. and Byron Murphy Jr. as possibilities for the Packers. What he's doing basically is looking at sort of all the things Goody does and trying to read the mind there with age and then people who fit their like athletic build that they like, which are two names I wouldn't be upset by as options.
There are much better corner options in free agency than there are receiver options. It's just, there's definitely just more realistic possibilities. I do like the idea of Asante Samuel Jr. Another draft crush of mine, actually, Joshy, back in the day.
Thanks for the update. He does have two names listed here at the wide receivers. We were talking about them a little earlier. Number one, T. Higgins.
Yep.
And I think that fits simply because he's young. Sort of, you still think T. Higgins' best days might still be ahead of him. And then an interesting one here, Hollywood Brown. Which, Hollywood Brown makes sense in terms of the vertical threat because he's still fast. I don't know how reliable of a target. Like he doesn't fill we need a wide receiver 1/reliable guy down in and down out. But what he might cost for what he could provide would be probably an advantage to the Packers.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. He's got to take some swings in free agency. This can't be what's the saying? Lame duck.
Yeah,
Nope.
but I don't know if you'd use it here.
That's
Can't be a
not
lame
even
duck this year.
close. Lame duck would
Sitting
mean
duck?
like he's going to be losing his job next in like a year.
Yeah, lame duck was what Mike McCarthy was.
Oh, not what I
Yes.
meant. Not what I meant.
It'd be like staying pat. You'd want something along those lines. Like he's
Staying
not doing
pat.
anything.
Yeah.
In terms, like, it was sort of the right word, but I don't know why you would apply it to Goody in free agency. Like, yeah, it's not what you wanted.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
You and Ben Brust do that same thing, too, where you kind of just hear a phrase and you say it, and you're like, maybe it'll work, hopefully.
Don't. Do not.
And it never works.
No.
Do not compare me to Ben Brust.
You guys are
Do
like
not.
twins.
Dude, we are, and it's so infuriating.
At least you're not dumb and think that you should get a tattoo. I was blown away by Ben Brust saying he's going to get a tattoo.
Yeah, Josh, you're a tattoo guy. So are you, Hunter. Brusty wants to get a half sleeve.
He's been talking about this for 5 years.
I know he has. Have you heard he's been doodling?
Yes, he's been doodling also for 5 years.
And he came up with the concept of a family tree on his arm. Did you hear this?
He would.
And then I asked him if he's going to get live, laugh, love on his back shoulder.
Home is where the heart is.
Right.
Ben seems like the type of guy that would get the black and gray lion with then the blue eyes. Be like, because I'm the king of my own jungle, bro. Like, a tree tattoo is the most basic white guy tattoo you can get after the lion. And then third place is like the pocket watch. God. Fourth is the money rose. Oh, it's pathetic.
I like that I have tattoo guys around me. This is good.
If I were to put the odds out, Ben getting a tattoo is like plus 1,500.
Oh, yeah. I think that's about right, yeah.
So you guys know Ben better than I do, but do you think he could actually sit through a half sleeve session? because like it can get to be a lot after a while.
Josh, did you have a sleeve?
No, I just have lots of tattoos. I mean, Ben is tough. He had to play under Bull Ryan.
Well,
but also,
that's
Ben
emotionally
gets tummy
tough.
aches, and Ben gets tummy aches, and he can't wear a belt for so long. He famously doesn't button his or wear any underwear because it hurts his tummy, which is all just like a lie, really. So it's hard to predict.
Which is just a lie, he says.
Yeah, like the only person in human history to not be able to wear underwear because it hurts their tummy. And it's like a medical reason, not just they're uncomfortable.
And for people that don't have tattoos, I always describe it as, imagine you're sitting there for 3 hours with sunburn and someone is scratching it constantly. Like, that's what getting a tattoo feels like. Like, I just don't think Ben could handle it. So I just needed to bring that up here as we brought up Ben Brust.
He'd need a lot of sessions.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. All right, let's talk divisional round weekend in the NFL. 4 games this weekend will get us down to 4 teams remaining for championship weekend next week. There's really only one sexy game this weekend. That, of course, is Bills-Ravens, which is the final game of the weekend coming up on Sunday night. This one, I mean, it's like a 1-point line in favor of Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Josh? I know we did this on the Weekly Wager the other day, which was not my strongest showing, by the way.
No, you could have done better.
Thanks.
Let's keep taking shots.
Yep.
Shoot or shoot.
Shoot or shoot, baby. Now, the fun thing about doing a gambling show, which I mean, that's only the second time I've really done it. And the first time we did it, we talked more about the Grammys than we did football. You know, you guys were all like, yeah, Strouf's on the wrong side of history here. But I could be right about everything I said.
You sure could be. I don't know how that's any different than any other thing you're saying. We really only disagreed with you on like 2 things.
No, that's not true. David Montgomery?
Yeah, that's one.
And then I said I love the over for Baltimore and Buffalo.
Yeah, and that's the other.
You told me you love the under.
I didn't say I loved the under. No, the over you liked was the chalky one, the one everyone's looking at, the 55.
Oh, the 55, which was Commanders-Lions.
Yeah, every time a number is... You love a high total and be like, yep, over. That's your thing. I've talked about it enough with you.
I like sexy matchups. I like points. Points.
Right, but you sometimes have to strategize. Maybe, like, could that game still be a 51 total and be a really good game?
No.
Okay.
Yes, it could be. You're right. So anyway, really only one sexy game this weekend. That's Ravens-Bills. It's 5:30 on Sunday, 5:30 Central on Sunday in Buffalo. Ravens currently sit, at least according to ESPN Bet, 1.5 point favorites. So I don't know how to figure this one out. Because the other ones seem like it's going to be chalk, right? Like, Chiefs are going to beat the Texans, Lions beat the Commanders, Eagles beat the Rams. Like, that just seems like probably what's going to happen. And I could be wrong, by all means.
I was going to say, I got a feeling one of those games is going to be close. And I'm not trying to predict.
I want you to pick one. Which one do you think has the potential to be close? Because Texans, Chiefs, it could be because, as we talked about on the Weekly Wager, it seems like anytime the Chiefs have had the bye under Andy Reid, they come out really slow.
Yeah,
and then the second half they just light the world on fire.
So there's 2 potential. That would be the one you just mentioned. But I don't. If I were to predict, I don't really think we're looking at it going, oh my God, the Chiefs might actually lose this game at any point.
Yeah.
They'll just have a 3 to 7 point lead and then kind of keep it that way. The one I think is the one that is one of the biggest spreads is the Commanders.
Yeah, 9.5. Detroit is favorable.
When you're talking that many potential points, you're talking potential for turnovers. You're talking a team that is missing their second and third stringers sometimes at some of their defensive positions. Like, I still think it's unlikely. Yeah. But would you be shocked if that game's like a field goal winner or a last second? Like,
no. I mean, they could stay in it for sure.
Jane Daniels has given me no reason to like really doubt him in any meaningful way.
What is okay? Just bear with me for a moment. I think best case scenario this weekend is all the underdogs win. Texans, Commanders, Rams, Bills. Like, in terms of my fandom,
I want to see the Chiefs three-peat.
Yeah, you're a fan of history.
Mm-hmm. I like excellence.
I don't
Okay, Ricky
understand people disliking excellence. Like, the possibility to see a three-peat is
like
really
parody.
cool.
I like parody. It's as simple as that, right? Like, I enjoy parody. I enjoy new winners.
But if parody comes at the cost of me having to watch, like, the Texans make it way too far, I'm out. Count me out.
Yeah,
Well,
I
the
don't
good
want a
news is the
Giants
Texans aren't going to make it
Ravens.
past this weekend.
Like, I don't want a Giants Ravens 2000 Super Bowl, or was it Tampa Bay Oakland? Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want those. Give me the big names. Give me the most popular people in the Super Bowl.
What's the best case scenario for you then, Hunter? Is it Chiefs Lions?
Yeah. Well, I did pick the Rams as a dark horse, so for myself, if the Rams were to make it, I'd feel so good about myself. So I'm going Rams.
Nothing like the show here where we promote our own personal things more than anyone else. Yeah, but I would be right. You just talked about how right you were about a draft pick 2 years ago. Now Hunter is not really giving analysis. Just say, "Oh, it sounds smart."
I picked the Rams as the dark horse. Watch
Yeah,
out.
like, why wouldn't I want myself to be right when I have a history of being so wrong? So the fact that they actually won that game, like, yeah, I want them to go far. I want to actually be right for once.
Unreal. All right. Let's pick them real quick, then we'll get to what we learned. First one is Texans-Chiefs. I imagine we're all in the Chiefs.
Yeah. Are we
Yep.
doing just straight up?
Just straight up.
Yeah.
They're favored by 8. I would imagine you might be on the Texans for the spread.
Yeah. I wouldn't bet them with any confidence, but that's the side I would lean.
I would too. I think Chiefs win by a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems completely normal to me. Commanders-Lions is the Saturday night game, 7 o'clock on Fox, 7 o'clock Central. Commanders at Lions. I love the over. Joshy, 55.5, baby.
We know.
I think the Lions roll here. I think rest is actually going to help them a lot. David Montgomery off the injury report with that MCL injury. I think that 1-2 punch, man, it's just too good to beat in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery.
I think the Lions win. I think the Commies don't have the firepower. I do think they'll score, and I do think they'll keep up and keep it within that 9. What is that number? It's up to 10 now, isn't it? Or is it back down to 9?
I see 9.5 right
Yeah.
now. But
that
ESPN
number has
bets
just
9.5.
kept climbing.
Yeah.
So I like them to keep it within that number, but it's just there's just too much on offense for really anyone.
yeah.
And I think
For the Lions.
the front seven for the Commanders is good enough to be able to slow down the running game early. And then I think they just get worn out because that's what happens to teams against the Lions.
Yeah.
So then I think that's where it gets close.
Penny Sewell for the 40th time wears on you.
Yeah. Bobby Wagner's not going to hold up in the fourth quarter.
No, probably not. Probably not. 2 o'clock Sunday, Rams at Eagles. Now, Hunter, you just said you picked the Rams as a dark horse, and given what they did to Minnesota last week, it seems like a team that's rolling at the right time. Now, they roll into Philadelphia, which obviously we saw the Packers go last week, and it did not go very well. Philadelphia, good team. I don't know, man. This might be, obviously, both games on Sunday, I feel like they're a little bit more difficult than Saturday. I think the one seeds both win on Saturday. Rams-Eagles is an intriguing one to me. I think I like the Eagles, as I see Matthew Stafford on a bed commercial right now.
Sleep number.
He's also behind you right now.
Him and his wife just taking a snooze on television.
They're replaying Week 1 Rams-Lions right behind you as well.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
They played them.
I think I could see this game going either way. I do think the Eagles are the better team. But if Sean McVay does Sean McVay stuff and has that offense moving and clicking,
They could win.
it could be. I don't know if the Eagles can play from behind or win from behind.
I don't either, and I don't know how much I trust Nick Sirianni, to be real honest with you.
Probably not at all.
Saquon's good, but this Rams offense is good too.
They haven't scored a lot of points recently.
No.
They kind of been eking them out, which I think if they're not trying to put up as many if they're not trying to sort of turn this into a track meet, I think doesn't work to their advantage.
Rams-Lions would actually be a really fun NFC Championship game. Obviously, given the trade, right? They swapped quarterbacks. And right now, the Rams are winning that trade because they got the Super Bowl. But the Lions are the best team in football, debatably. So not a bad trade for them either with Jared Goff. So anyway, I'm going to pick the Rams, I think. Give me the Rams to win.
Wow.
Yeah, Rams all
Josh,
day.
you on the Eagles?
Yeah, I'm calling Eagles.
And Hunter just wants to sound smart, so he's on the Rams.
Of course.
Okay, this is the one I don't know how to pick. It's Ravens Bills. What a fun game this should be. Sunday night, 5:30 kickoff on CBS and Paramount Plus. It's in Buffalo. It's the two MVP candidates going head to head. These are teams that played earlier in the season, and the Ravens won big. It wasn't very close either. I forget what week it was. Week 4, 35-10 was the score of that game when these two teams met up the first time. Matt Milano was out, but that's about it. Right, like Buffalo was pretty healthy. Now they weren't cooking as much as they struggled with the Cardinals in the opener. Then they smoked the Dolphins and Jags in weeks 2 and 3, and then they went on to lose 2 in a row to the Ravens and the Texans, two teams still alive in the playoffs. I think I like the Ravens. I think Lamar gets back to the AFC Championship game for the second year in a row. Now it's on the road, which is the part that I'm intrigued by, is that this game is in Buffalo. But I like the Ravens, man. John Harbaugh's such a good football coach. That offense has come to the next level under Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Obviously, like Rashad Bateman's had a career year with that offense. Defensively, they've gotten better in recent weeks. They had kind of a rough start under our buddy Zach Orr, the brother of Chris Orr, friend of show. But I think this Ravens team is for real. Like, I think if there's one threat to the Chiefs, it is more so Baltimore than it is Buffalo. So I will take the Ravens in this one.
I like the Bills end of this. I think the Bills have beat the two best teams. They did it pretty convincingly. I can't fathom why the Ravens have gotten, I'm looking at the Rams right now, why the Ravens have gotten so high up. Obviously, they've won some impressive games. They've also played the Steelers like 2 out of the last 5 weeks, which was going to make you look better at all because that team was full collapse.
3 out of the last 7 weeks.
3 out of the last 7? I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah, 2 of the last 4, 3 of the last 7.
I don't believe their defense is as real as it has looked or people are leading us to believe. They've played some bad teams. You listed them off on the weekly wager. There ain't a lot there, and it's like, well, yeah, of course they look good. How does that look when Josh Allen comes to town? But the wrecking ball.
But let's not forget what they did to Houston. Right, like I feel
I'm going to forget. I've dismissed Houston.
Yes, but
for weeks, and
they won last week, Josh.
Yeah,
they won a playoff game.
It took Justin Herbert to throw more interceptions than he had in a calendar year. If they get that outcome against Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to pick the Texans to win. Even then, I'd still be like, I don't know. The Chiefs have a chance.
Here's the thing, I wouldn't. If Mahomes throws 4 interceptions, I'm still picking the Chiefs. Right, so I'm with you. I'm dismissing them this weekend, but the Texans aren't an awful football team, and the Ravens beat them 31-2 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
the most impressive win in terms of dominance of the NFL season was the Ravens over the Texans in Week 17, 31-2. That's utter dominance.
I get it. I don't think the Texans deserve to be where they are.
The Ravens secondary also isn't good. And Josh Allen, I think, could pick them apart. So,
I like when Hunter just gives very abrupt analysis. They're just not good.
They're not.
Straight to the point.
They get burned by good receiving cores and good quarterbacks. And Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the NFL.
Josh and Hunter, actually, you can both play this game. Hold on, I want to play a game quick. Name defensive backs on the Ravens. Go.
Marlon Humphrey.
Correct.
Kyle Hamilton.
The safety.
The safety is Kyle Hamilton. Yes. Name one more. There is one gettable name.
I know there is.
Once again, a guy I wanted the Packers to draft.
Is he a guy that could be described as wiry?
Yeah,
probably if Strouf wanted the Packers to draft him.
6'1", 182. I would define that as wiry.
His name's not coming to me.
Nate Wiggins out of Clemson.
Okay, yes,
yep.
He was so small. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got some backs, but Nate Wiggins only a rookie, right? Like he was born in 2003.
Makes you feel old, huh?
The NFL that were born in 2003.
I was in middle school.
2004.
Well, what year were you born?
2002.
Old.
Ugh.
Yeah, you're older than Nate Wiggins.
Yeah, it makes me feel not as good as he does about where we are in our lives.
Yeah, you're wrapping up college. This guy's playing in a divisional round game.
You could argue I got a leg up on him. Knowledge. You can't put a price tag on knowledge. You can put a price tag on a contract.
I
or
mean,
a
college just
championship,
literally
but
put a
not
price
knowledge.
tag on it.
I was just about to say, I think your tuition
Hunter.
would disagree.
I don't think Nate Wiggins was doing much school.
You know, we were talking about this earlier today. So Marquette put out, did you see this?
No.
Marquette put out every one of their players that had a 3.0 GPA and higher, which was every single one of their players except one.
Oh, that's tough.
Cam Jones. Cam Jones was not on the list.
Not there to play
So
school.
this guy that is making bonko bucks in NIL and likely will go to the NBA
Yeah.
was the only name not on the list.
Like,
very funny.
Strouf, you can't tell me your senior year, if you know you're going to the NBA and you're making a ton of money, you're not phoning it in. Like, you're literally just doing enough to stay eligible.
Brother, I didn't even go to the NBA and I phoned it in.
Yes, to say.
I phoned it in for 4 years.
So, like,
I mean,
I started phoning it in sophomore year of high school.
right. Now, I will say this, humble brag, my college GPA was higher than my high school GPA. And if I was on the Marquette basketball team, there would be two names left off the list. It would be Cam Jones and Alex Strouf, not on
That's
the
just
list.
maturity growing as you.
I had a 2.5 in high school. I had a 2.9 in college. 2.99. I was like 0.01 away from a 3.0. 2.99.
Too busy covering the Green Bay Phoenix to really
Not in
hammer
college.
down on the books.
That was a high school thing, yeah. In college, I was too busy playing radio at 90 FM on the campus of Stevens Point. There you go. All right. You learn something new every day. We learned something new today. It's time now for What We Learned. I'll throw the ball up. Who wants it?
Not I.
Hunter?
I played not it.
Hunter, you not in also?
Just 1 second. I had to look it back up. I had it on my phone saved as a note.
Oh my
I was
God.
not prepared.
This is a disaster. What the
Yeah.
hell are we doing here? Hey, Will, what'd you learn today?
Rugby shirts aren't cool anymore, apparently.
Good take. Whoever told you that is a smart fella.
Here's something I learned. We can tie it in from how we started the show. In 2007, Bob Uecker did an entire inning describing the furry convention that was happening in Pittsburgh and that they ran into on the way to the ballpark. So it is the start of the game, I believe, the very first inning, and he talks for about 10 minutes while going, strike outside, 2-1 on Craig Counsell. And then he goes into what he called furriers. He somehow got a little off base on that. But just the thought of Bob Uecker played with Warren Spahn, has seen the world change so much, and then he walks to his lobby, and there's somebody in a fox costume next to some like a hippo or something on the other side. That it was. You can find it. Eric Bilstead tweeted it out. They shared a Wisconsin Morning News segment of it, where basically he's bopping between the two topics: the game that's happening in front of him and the furry convention in Pittsburgh that year.
That's awesome. That was great. Hunter, go ahead.
Mine was also Bob Uecker related. I saw this tweet on July 24th, 1965. St. Louis Cardinals catcher Bob Uecker hit a home run off of Dodgers pitcher Sandy Koufax. The home call of that game was done by Vin Scully. The road broadcast was Harry Carey and Jack Buck.
Wow.
So legends all
Bunch of
around in that
legends.
game.
Yeah, reunited yesterday as Bob Uecker dies at the age of 90. Wow, really fun fact there. Good Uecker factoids, boys. I'm really excited to listen to this furriers thing.
When you said reunited, I really wanted to indicate someone might have went to hell, but I couldn't figure out which one of them I was going to put in hell. Not Bob, obviously. That's heaven straight up. But the other three, I was debating.
I was going to tell you the Bucks are good again, but I can't. That'll do it for us today. We are back with you Wednesday. No show Monday in observance of MLK Day. We are off on Monday. We're back with you Wednesday beginning at 12:30. ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube to recap Divisional Round weekend, get ready for the Packers offseason, and as well recap Ohio State Notre Dame coming up Monday on ESPN. Thanks to Hunter. Joshy was here. Thanks to part-time Will. Once again, I say Joshy was here. I'm Alex Strouf. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Peace.